I am a completely different person in the best way. There was just some really rough times in my life, and mine had a lot to do with depression that was undiagnosed. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I would have really great days for a long time, and then it would start to get dark, and that darkness would be like closing in. And then one day I'd wake up and it was black, and it was that bad, and I had a suicide attempt. I woke up and I just said, I don't want to live. The next day, after I got home from the hospital, I'm with my mom, and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, I can't believe I did that.
Being a mom is the toughest job there is, and it doesn't come with instructions. So it's okay if you don't have all the answers. We'll figure it out together. This is Mom Brain with Hilaria Baldwin and Daphne Oz.
That's where we are right now, from podcast to DJing.
Wait, podcasts aren't DJs?
We're not a DJ. We're going to play you one of our favorite new songs. But no, I was going to tell you that one of my all-time favorite hashtags to follow on Instagram, and it might just be my friends who are co-opting this and it's not a real thing, but I want to make it a real thing. It's hashtag party mom.
Party mom.
And I just feel like what we're talking about here, having tattoos and extra piercings. Ginger just got her second and third piercings in her ear.
Because why wouldn't you?
Because why wouldn't you? You're a mom, but you're allowed to be like fun and weird and wild sometimes.
I think
after
so.
the kids are asleep.
So I just made my hair darker like last week. And then I was thinking that I was going to cut it off because I love extremes.
You need some change. Yeah.
No, I thought I was going to
I
put
got
like
you.
super short. I don't know what. And literally my hairdresser was like, really? You want to cut it like 8 inches? I was like, yes, I do. And he had the scissors like right here. And then my friend sent me this video of the SNL skit of the mom cut.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, abort mission, stop. No, don't do it. And took the scissors away.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that being a cool mom, it's like we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful because we somehow get trapped into this like, we got to wear the jeans and we got to cut our hair short.
Should I tell my cool mom story?
Please do.
I want to hear. What? Yeah, come on, party mom.
Party mom. I mean, this is the antithesis of cool mom, but whatever. People will understand what I mean. I was at a photo shoot, and the photographer, who's extremely talented, does beautiful work, is used to working with real models. You know, they'd hired her for this pregnancy shoot. I was, no joke, maybe 7 or 8 months pregnant with my third. So everyone out there with multiples knows that like it just gets bigger and better every time. I was 12 months pregnant. And I show up at the shoot, and, I have 2 other toddlers, so I hadn't slept very well. I show up at the shoot, bleary-eyed, hadn't had my coffee yet. I walk in, they've set up this gorgeous townhouse, and the photo editor comes up to me, and she goes, she was, I think, from Norway. And she was like, my vision for this shoot is you're just a cool mom. You're a cool mom, and you don't wear makeup. Your hair is natural.
Really good accent.
It's still me, guys. It's still Daphne.
I'm here.
And my favorite outfit I picked for you is this beautiful. And I'm waiting for it. I'm like, yes, fucking ball gown.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Mechanic suit. No, I am not freaking kidding you. For this woman who herself was the coolest mom and, glamorous and all this, but, would have rocked a black jeans and a t-shirt, wanted me at 10 months pregnant to be in a unisuit.
Oh, wow. What color? What color?
Like thick denim. I'm talking
Like, are we thinking
denim.
like Humpty Dumpty? Because that's always what I feel like. I look like I'm
Humpty
pregnant when I'm wearing something like that.
Rolled right down that hill. It was also like August. I mean, it was 8 million degrees.
No.
I was like, my friend, I will not take this photo shoot without 8 strips of fake lashes, like multiple pounds of concealer, and a really fitting waist-giving outfit. So that's my cool mom story. But
you are cool.
You are very cool.
I think you saved yourself.
I think, but that's the word I start using. So the word that comes to mind when I got a second and third ear piercing, and I went home and my husband said, "What's wrong? Are we okay?" I mean, because obviously there's something wrong if you come home at 37 years old with a fresh ear piercing. I kept using the word edgy.
Oh,
yes, edgy. I like
I'm
that.
really, because I'm not at all. I'm the most.
No, you are, actually. As I get to know you more and more, I find there are so many like nooks and crannies of Ginger Z to get lost in, and I love it.
Well, first of all,
so
your name is Ginger Z, which I feel like is edgy. And
Very
you
stripperish.
are wearing,
Thank you.
the red shoes. She is wearing red shoes right now. And I have lots of earrings, and some of them are kind of spiky, which have edges.
Oh,
There
see?
you go.
There you go. That is edgy. And that's, I have to say, so my name, Ginger Z, I always say this, but the first job I did was in Flint, Michigan. And I was so excited excited. It was my first like full time. And I got there, and Flint has a shared market. So it's Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. It's this whole side of Michigan that they count as one market. That weekend when I started, Ginger Z debuted, there was a new debut at Sensations, which was a strip club of Ginger Z.
No.
Just the letter.
No.
Oh,
Yes.
come on.
We shared our opening weekend. I never got to know this young lady, who she was or what her purpose or future was. But yes, I shared that name as
But
well.
you know what's amazing is that you don't even have to come up with that like porn name.
No.
Like, we all have that porn name. It's like
I have it
the
already.
real deal is that.
I feel like so the porn combo is your first name plus the street you grew up on.
No. It's either your first pet and the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't sound like anyone you'd want to
Yours
spend the
isn't.
evening with.
Tell me.
Toto Winston.
Yours is much more like Upper East Side. I don't know. I'm
No,
sugar.
I'm Daphne Oz. Like obviously, every pet I've ever owned had some reference to the Wizard of Oz.
That's
Oh, wow.
funny. Oh, that's
my
very
first
clever.
my first cat was
Oh
Toto.
my God, you know
Oh,
what
that
just
does.
came together? This is how well I know you because
Yeah.
I'm too close to be able to see it.
Yes.
You were the Wizard of Oz, Glinda the Good Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was
Hilaria,
the Oz.
oh my
no,
gosh.
no.
This woman does have
I
4
don't
children.
sleep.
I
I don't sleep. I just was like, well, I was her
That's
last
nice.
year, and so I'm like, oh, this is great. It's like a mom. It's a
Thing.
mom outfit because it's just like flowy, and you feel like you're a princess, and
You
your
totally
daughter
do.
like really likes the dress, right? My daughter
My
was
kids
so into
love
it.
that dress. Even my baby, who sometimes Nika, who sometimes gets like skittish around big, loud, crazy things. She's she's my first baby that has stranger danger. It's not that she cares about noise or anything. She just if she doesn't know you, she's sort of like not into you.
It's a really normal thing to be. It's
Yes.
actually a very good thing, right? When
think it's
kids have
smart.
that,
Mhm.
it's such a normal instinct, and we should probably all have it.
Right, right.
I never have, and that's been my issue most of my life.
Hi, stranger.
Like, hello, come on in.
But no, Glinda the Good Witch was my Halloween
Yeah.
costume this
look
this
great.
year, and I literally scrolled through Hilaria's. She did this the roundup of the last
Yeah.
few years, and could not. We were literally wearing the exact same costume. For me, it happened to be what Amazon could deliver the day
Quickly.
before.
Which is actually my Halloween costume. I think my genius in it is I do whatever's like the easiest. That was the most
Yeah.
in-depth one. This year we were all astronauts, and all I had to do was get like these like zip up
You
astronaut
got the one
suits.
from
cute
her
mom.
from her shoot. A cool mom.
Exactly. Mine
yeah,
were orange.
mine.
And I wasn't pregnant, which always helps. And then I did the Incredibles before, which we just did
Oh, that's neat.
T-shirts with
Mhm.
black pants.
Oh.
So, and then we didn't even do the whole costume thing. We just did the Incredibles T-shirts.
That was not as it was. For GMA, we always go over top.
Yes, which
And
I love.
don't know why, but they like to make me into a monster. Like everybody else looks hot. Everybody else gets to be like hot Halloween. And I always end up being, one year I was Groot, like a big tree. I was Dory, a giant fish.
Hey,
Hey.
now.
When I was
What?
really pregnant, I was the Hulk because
Oh,
there's no better way to
Wait,
make
I'm
a
sorry.
woman feel
No.
small.
This is abuse.
It is abuse.
This is out of control.
So this year they said, we've got this idea. You're going to be coming out of a sewer grate and you're going to be
No.
a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And I'm like, well, I'm green again, so that's no surprise. But my son loves, and we just started watching like the old ones.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
So I knew
I
we could
have
do
a
a family.
I have a
of- that's
Leonardo
fun.
and a Raphael.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
See?
kids.
Oh,
see?
and then they
and then
forget.
people think like, oh, you named him after the Ninja Turtles, and then I had a third
They don't
son,
know.
and they're like, it's gonna be Donatello, right? I'm like, no, it's not gonna be Donatello.
you kind of
Michelangelo.
thought about Donatello a little bit.
No, I didn't at all. I actually Leonardo is Leonardo Angel, Leonardo
Oh,
angel. So
angel.
I already did the whole angel thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of have
already happened.
Michelangelo I have Michelangelo
The signs.
with the Leonardo
Those
already.
are the fingers of the,
Oh, I
of the
see. I-
Sistine
Oh,
Chapel.
oh,
of the-
Oh,
or not the
I thought maybe it was the Ninja Turtle
I was
thing.
like, gosh,
Oh.
I'm like out on the gang signs. Like, what is happening here? What is that? I totally missed.
So one thing I love is that we all have sons.
Yeah.
So you have 2 sons.
Yes.
They are 3 and 8 months.
He'll be 3 and then 8 months. So this is a fun I don't know how you all do it with more. I am in this mode of just bowing to you. I can't. They just came off their first like fall sickness.
Oh,
Oh,
so
no.
hard.
Ugh.
Oh, it's horrible.
And one was enough when they get sick. Now it's like, what's this other one going to do with this? Because all their immune systems do something different.
Right.
I'm too terrified. I decided last week when we're in the middle of fevers, like, I don't think I can do this
Right.
anymore.
And you can't get sick. I mean, you have to be.
No.
What you have to be at GMA? What at like 4 in the morning
yeah,
every
I get
day?
up at 3:45.
Oh my god.
And so when they're up every hour with coughs and all this stuff. It's like it makes for a much more interesting morning, that's for sure. But nothing no parent hasn't done before. It's just that I tend to have to look good at 4:30 in the morning.
So
or
how
whatever.
do you take care of yourself? How do you, number one, try to prevent yourself from getting sick? And then if you do get sick, like what are your beauty tips?
I always go to bed when they do. Like everybody says sleep when they sleep, but like really that goes well beyond being an infant.
Which is
So
what time?
I try by 8:39.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
amazing.
yeah, because if I don't, I'm up at 3:45. I've just ruined myself, and I've seen it. Monday or Tuesday, you can get away with it. Tuesday, Wednesday, it starts to deteriorate.
Right.
Thursday, Friday, you don't want to know me. You know,
Right.
if I've stayed up, especially past 10. If it's past 10, I'm not even looking forward to anything for the rest of the week. And then once I do, I mean, I'm fortunate to have great makeup and beauty or hair folks at GMA, so they can fix anything pretty much. But I do. The water is really the thing. I sound like my dad. You know, it's like you grow up and you know the one thing that was so annoying. We'd be like, we have a stomach ache, drink a glass of water. I have a headache, drink a glass of water. I really believe that water is it. I
Of
think
course.
that's so
Yeah.
silly, but it really is the one thing that keeps me going.
It makes sense because
Yeah.
we are mostly made out of water. So we have to keep our system going, replenish, and just,
And flush.
Yeah,
I mean, people
flush,
forget
exactly.
about just like even the headache thing. You know, so often you get dehydrated and your body's response is to have a headache before you're even sick.
Yes.
Oh, it tells you. And that's the thing, too. So at night, the other thing is I've become, because I was never great about taking my vitamins or being good about taking many supplements, I'd be inconsistent at best.
Right.
Since I've had kids, I would say I'm better than ever. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I have to be healthy for them. I make it a game, and Adrian loves to help me with my vitamins. So last night, like on Sunday nights, we put together like the pack. I'm such an old lady. I've got the pack.
Yeah.
And I've got
Oh, yeah.
and he thinks it's so much fun. He counts, and so we practice counting, and we've made it a game. And then he knows those are mommies, so it's not like he doesn't touch them or
Right.
want them or anything. And he loves the squishy one, is like the krill oil, and like he's like,
Right.
and then we learn, and I tell him what they're for, and we have this whole process. So at night he likes to give them to me, and I can't forget because he won't let me.
Oh, that's
It's like before
amazing.
the bedtime routine is partly mom takes her vitamins.
I love that. Teaching him responsibility.
Yeah.
You're getting ready for when you're, 20, 50, 35 years down the
And
road.
now you feed mommy,
Now-
feed mommy those. Yeah.
Okay, under eye circles.
Oh, this has been the bane of most of my existence. I've had, what are they called? Allergy. Some people have more prone because of allergies and
Yeah.
because of how you're
Contact dermatitis?
Yeah,
or
maybe. I have no idea, but my mom always says that I have that. So for me, mine has been not just water, obviously, but I have a mixture. I only use foundation. I don't use concealer anymore. And for me, that's the thing that makes the difference. A lighter foundation, the way light hits it. I think that I was also caking on concealer
Right.
too much because you can do really bad things with
Absolutely.
concealer.
Yes.
And light foundation makes you still look like a normal human being, but
So wait, you apply a coat of like skin matched foundation, and then under your eyes and sort of in that highlighting area between eyes and nose, you do a lighter
Yes.
color of the same style, of the same
Yep.
formula. and
usually
everything.
same formula, or it's sometimes a little bit different. If I'm using MAC one place, I'll use,
Okay.
Giorgio Armani in another. But
You know what Daphne and I have been doing
Hmm.
is eye drops.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that I found, and I'm sure that most people can relate who wear makeup, is that I'd wash my face at night. And then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have like makeup in the corners of my eyes. And so I realized that I actually was washing makeup into my eyes and then closing my eyes and sleeping with it there, which is like horrible. So I rinse my eyes out with eye drops before going to bed. And then the first
just
thing
the
in the
regular
morning.
saline ones.
Just yeah. I mean, whatever. It may be something with like a little
Taking
lubricant
that with
sometimes.
me.
It's
I
a
know.
good one.
I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you one for the road too. Are the eye drops thing? I'm using this one called Uptique, which is a homeopathic version.
Oh, nice.
And they come in little ampules, like the same thing that you give
Yeah.
your kids, the camellia type of,
Yep.
that same company, Boyron. And you just pop those in your purse and you always have them ready to go. And they're sterile and easy to travel with.
Because
which is nice.
in television, I got hooked on the bad kind.
Oh,
a
yeah,
long
no,
time
yeah,
ago.
The blue
And then I
eyes,
finally have gotten rid of them.
Yeah.
So, but then that was a big process for my body to get used to it. I think it took a full year
So-
before my body wasn't reacting anymore.
Explain to everybody the bad kind because I found out about that once I started getting into television, but I don't think most people know about it. And don't get addicted to this. We're giving you information to not do
Big
this.
warning here.
Big warning. Don't
And you
do
know,
it.
I became a pusher at one point. Yeah,
Oh, my
I
goodness.
did. I know. It's really scary.
I feel like this is your edgy side
You're giving
coming
party
out.
moms a really
Just the
bad name,
edges.
Ginger.
well, when you are a party mom or pre-party mom.
Party mom.
Because I did have my party times and still was working in television. And so I felt desperate because I'd have those red eyes
Right.
and they show up so much on camera. And so someone her name's Erin Luby. She's not in TV anymore, but she's totally my originator where I found the drug first. She said, use these. And there's one type that's blue, that's actually blue, that goes in your eye. That's probably the worst. And sometimes they're created in Asia, and you don't even know what's in them.
You don't know.
Which is, why would you ever do that? But
No.
I did a lot of things I have a lot of questions about in that era of my life. So,
But now she goes to bed at 8:30.
I do.
So it's good.
Life comes full
But
circle.
I have a second and third hole in my ear. So I'd use those. And then even the ones that are just the Opcon that have the allergy relief. Those
Yeah.
are even next level, and you don't want to go
Really?
there. So I'd use either blue drops if it was a really bad day, or use the Opcon. And they got me hooked so hard that within a couple of months, I needed them, or else my eyes were red.
Yep.
And so whether I had been out doing something and I was not really in need, my eyes were red anyway. And so really it took, I think it was 15 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I don't know what the effects are. I can't see as well, but that might be age too.
It's age actually in having babies that your eyesight gets worse
Oh.
when you're pregnant and
And after?
usually starts to return around 6 months to a year. It starts to get back to normal. So
I'm gonna
you're
get
still in the
better.
window.
Yay.
But don't you think that's kind of generous? Like, if your eyesight goes a little bit, you're a little more gentle on yourself. You're a little like, yeah.
No,
I
I
look
think it's
good.
so
I look
not fair. I
good.
feel no. Well, I guess
good.
you know what
It's like-
I
it's like a
love that
mirror
because
at
I
the good
usually feel like
stores.
it's so unfair because I'm like I need to be like, why do we get nauseous? Like all this. I mean, I know why, but like I want to be like on my game. I want to be like a superhuman where I
Yeah.
can like do all this, and I want to be able to see. I want to be able to not be tired.
Well, the nice thing is your eyesight in the front goes, but you get two new eyes at the back of your head. So, you
Very
know, it's
true.
all even.
Very true.
I have to ask you because we've been sort of dancing around it, but you obviously had a really full life and full career for the last 15 years. And your son's, Adrian's what, almost 4 now?
He'll be 3.
He'll
Yeah.
be 3. He'll
Yeah.
be 3. Okay, so in the last 3 years, you've now introduced 2 young gentlemen into your
Yes.
lives, your beautiful sons. Talk to us a little bit about your sort of transition from Ginger Z pre-babies to Ginger Z post-babies and what that's looked like for you.
I am a completely different person in the best way. I really think this is the best version of myself that I've ever been. And that's exciting because I had a lot of growth to do. That's why I wrote a book about it, because there was just some really rough times in my life. And I think a lot of it had to do with not caring for myself, not loving myself, and not having purpose. You talk about something that gives you all of those things, and that's children. You can't be that way. Well, that's not true. You can, of course, people can be faced with depression easily post-baby. It's very common for people to have. For me, I was growing into an emotional being even when I was 20, 25. I just wasn't there yet. And I think I had a lot of learning to do. So for me, I have a really we talk about troughs and ridges in the atmosphere, very much like peaks and valleys. Everybody says this, but I had some of my deepest valleys prior to meeting my husband and having this point in my life. And mine had a lot to do with depression that was undiagnosed. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I would have really great days for a long time, and then it would start to get dark, and I wouldn't really know what to do with that feeling. And that darkness would be like closing in, like how a movie screen can close in. And then one day I'd wake up and it was black. And it was that bad. And I had a suicide attempt. And I had a lot of things that people deal with. But after, say, my suicide attempt, and I talk about this in my book, and people can maybe relate to it or not. I've been speaking all over the nation. A lot of people can relate to it, it sounds like. I woke up and I just said, I don't want to live. That's how dark it was. Very weird, because the next day after I got home from the hospital, I'm with my mom, and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe that was me. And I was just at an event this weekend where I was speaking about mental health, and we were raising money. And all these families had their children that had been lost to suicide. And I'm talking hundreds of families. It was one of the heaviest, but also eye-opening for me to think I had never thought like this. That might be the way they were too. It might have just been that one day. It might have been just that one moment. Fortunately, I got help and was found. And what didn't help for me was after I said, well, I don't know how that happened. I totally ignored it, ran on with my life, got my job in Flint. I was like, hey, Ginger Z is starting this weekend. And I would go in these swings where, not in a bipolar way, because I was never diagnosed with bipolar, but I would ignore the darkness that had been there. And so until the day that I was honest with myself and really started to get the help I needed, and for me, all it's been is therapy, and intense, great therapy. And that has helped me to get to the point where I was ready for someone to love me. And that was my husband, because I ran away from him a lot. And I did. Because I wanted, who doesn't want bad?
I know.
All I want, and it's not just
And
I
your
wanted a
husband is
bad boy.
good.
I
He's-
wanted like really bad. I was like, let's get into this. Let's be manipulative and abusive. Like, I liked that kind of bad.
Why?
Like, I think because I didn't have self-love. I mean, it was so simple. It's like the most easy concept to say is if you don't have something in yourself, you're searching for someone else's approval and you're searching, but you often fill that void with someone who isn't healthy either.
Right.
And I did that a lot, as many women do. There's a lot of reasons. It took me a long time to figure it all out. But and you can, with professional help, I think, figure those things out. And then what I ended up doing was learning tools for emotional health and stability that got me to the place where finally, and I had met my husband about a year after my intense therapy, and I had actually checked myself into a mental health hospital 10 days before I started my job at ABC News. Yeah. It was
Oh my
it was
gosh.
that, and that's what I start my book with. It's like, "Hi, I'm Ginger. I checked myself into a mental health hospital." And I think people see me and they think that I'm just light and airy and all this, but what I've noticed from the response for the book is this is very common.
Yeah.
The part that's uncommon is saying, "Okay, I'm ready. I have a problem." And just like drug or alcohol rehabilitation, I went and said, "I need rehabilitation."
What do you think, because that is very rare, as you said it,
Yeah.
what do you think gave you the power to be able to do that? Was it there just enough of a piece of the pie of yourself that wanted to live and wanted to be okay? I mean,
Yeah.
I struggled with an eating disorder until I was 25, and there was just this constant feeling of like I'd go down that dark hole
Mhm.
and then I'd have to like pull myself out of it again, and I'd have to pull more and more and more until the point where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mhm.
I am not doing this anymore. And then I started to flip and I started to change.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that you have to remind yourself of all the time, but you can create normalcy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd love to talk about that. And then as a follow-up to that, I want to talk about raising kids, not just with us being, people who have struggled being their parents, because there's a lot of parents who are totally, fine and never struggled with any of that, at least that they notice. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
big believer that everybody
Everybody has something,
everybody
yeah.
has their something, but not in terms of like a gigantic struggle that
Sure.
they did to the point of, a suicide attempt.
Mhm.
But how do we, I don't think it's ever too early to teach self-love. Even
Yes.
for my son, my littlest one is 5 months old.
Mhm.
And even like teaching him that now so that they can grow up and always know that they're important. So first, how were you capable of making that choice?
I think I was finally ready. So I saw something. I got the job. I knew the job was at ABC, and I knew it was my dream job. And all I had cared about for most of my life, my personal life, was seriously a natural disaster. That's why I called it that, because it was so bad and I would spiral all the time and have all these. I don't think I was attending to that. I was attending to the part that I didn't want to ruin, and that was my career. I had been lucky at that point because I had been a partier. I had gotten into some like really places where I should have gotten in big trouble and didn't, and I knew I was lucky. And so I had kind of been feeling those feelings. Transitions for me were always tough. That was where my depression ended up coming out. And a lot of people have this.
Yeah.
Either they react with anxiety or depression when they have a big, whether it's good or bad. And I knew I was moving to New York City. I knew I was going to take on this brand new job. And I didn't want to wake up one day with that darkness. And so I felt it kind of coming in. And I said to my mom, listen, I've done this twice before. I know that I've never gotten the real help that I need. I'm ready. And she said, then you have to check yourself in. I really think this is going to be, because she had been advising this for 10 years, and mom's always right.
Mhm.
And so I went to Columbia here when I got to New York. And instead of going to my new apartment, I went to Columbia and handed over my clothing and my cell phone and said, I need help. I'm in a bad place. Please get me right. And I met my therapist that I now still am in therapy with, and I committed to a change. And that was it for me. It doesn't work for everybody that easily, but for me, all it took was that. And a year later, I met my husband, and I was still I was dating this guy who I still don't know if he was married or not. Like, I couldn't figure it out, really. And I kept going back and forth to this really bad relationship, and I kept working with my counselor. It was like having this best friend who was impartial, he wasn't telling me, he wasn't placating anything I was saying. He was like, you are being your old self. When you want the negative, you're going for that guy. I respected my husband. I met him so much. I thought, I can't do this to him. I can't go back and forth. So I'd be like, I can't see you anymore, because I knew I needed to be abused for a little bit,
Right.
And so I'd go back to the bad guy. But I was honest with him. And
Yeah.
and then I would say, oh, no, I do deserve that. And it took me about 6 months to finally get to the point where I said, okay, I'm diving in. And it was around right after Christmas. And I said, I'm diving into this guy because I'm going to allow the love that he obviously has for me, because he keeps sticking around through all this, to wash over me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to treat him right. I'm going to treat myself right. And that's really where I made a change. I think that's when I stopped using the eye drops, which is interesting.
Interesting how that all
Started
how it
to see
all
clearly.
goes.
Yep.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you have to focus on, if somebody's going through a dark time, focus on the moments, even if it's just a moment where you feel light,
Yes.
where you feel happy.
Yep.
And that's where you need to go. You go towards the light, away from darkness, and you have to care about that
And you have
light.
to get the support
Yeah.
around you, because you can't do that alone.
Yeah.
And you need the people, and whether it takes as severe as mine was, as actually going to a hospital,
Yeah.
or it's just surrounding yourself with the people that you know are going to keep you in that lightness.
Right.
Being isolated is probably the worst thing. And that's what most people, when they're in those dark places, go to, is let me shun away from everything and let
Right.
me get far away over here,
And
because
the
I can do whatever
shame.
I want.
And also the shame about reaching out and being embarrassed about it. But
And-
once you'll find, though, don't you think that once you find that you open up about it, you're like, it's not scary anymore.
It's the most healing part, because true honesty with myself was the problem. I was lying to myself.
Right.
Oh, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That didn't just, when I'd have whatever with a guy or with that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I'd move on, and it was like, but you have to address it. It did happen. It's your life. It's part of it. And it's what you're going to learn from. And then you're not ashamed of it. And so you can use it.
Right.
And that's what I've done. And so the night before my book went to print, and it has all of this like real dirt, I was like, oh, I don't know. Am I going to ruin my job? Is everybody going to fire me? Because it's really, I mean,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. And my husband's like, if you don't feel nervous right now, and if you don't think you're going to say something that's going to upset someone, then you're not making a change. And I realized it was the first time I didn't care what people thought.
Good for
It
you.
had to be, because, and that's what's made the most change. And now that's been the best response.
Good.
And I'm
That's
not
so
fired.
inspiring.
It's really, I mean, it's so valuable for, and people who are listening, some of you will have been through something so common here, and you'll have so much common ground. And some will be sitting there thinking, wow, like, I'm grateful that that hasn't been my experience, but I know someone who has. But I think for everyone, you recognize that when you are able to be vulnerable, people come out of the woodwork to support you, to identify with you, and also, I mean, you're in a position of huge, awareness, and with this wonderful platform to be able to bring and shed light on something as rampant as mental health awareness. And I think people feel like, God, she's been so successful, and she has this beautiful family, and she's beautiful. And if she can come out on the other side of this extremely debilitating disease, and by the way, that also is another piece. It's never gone.
No,
and
that's
I wanna,
the reality. And that's what I always say to myself, is I know tomorrow isn't given. I know it's not, that I'm not going to wake up starting to feel that.
Right.
And so I'm always aware of that. Yes,
Yeah.
I've been in a really sunshiny spot, and I've been getting so much help. And I've been lucky enough to have that. And that's the thing. I keep working with these groups that are providing, they're raising money so that they can provide it for people. Because if you don't have the therapy in front of you, if you don't have that opportunity, what were you going to do?
Right.
Then it's over. You don't have that. So I think that's a really important part too. Not only are we making everyone aware that it's out there, but it's like, okay, now what? Let's get the help that makes it go away. Because, and I know I struggled with anorexia. And so that was like ages 10 to 14 was my really bad, nearly hospitalized type of anorexia. And when you were asking about the kids and how I deal with them and how their self-worth and their self-love, I think a lot about this, because how I spoke to myself, whether it was silently or not, was so critical to what I ended up feeling and doing. The way I speak to myself now, even if it's like having to convince myself that that's the right way, is so powerful. And that's the part for me that is big, with, especially with food, because it was such and is still an issue. That's something that never goes away either. It's always going to be in you. I've memorized, baby carrot calories to everything. It
The
stays
egg
with
with
you.
the yolk and without the yolk.
it. And that library of information doesn't leave you. Now you can make it powerful, because now it's going to be nutrient for your child.
Right.
And actually, egg yolk is funny, because Adrian just decided he doesn't like the yolk, and he doesn't want it because it's oil. And I said, why do you call it the oil? And he said, I don't like it. It tastes like oil. I'm like, well, I guess it kind of does, because it's got that
It's
fat. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he doesn't like the taste of it.
But a
I
lot
said,
of kids don't like the
I know.
yolk. Yeah.
But I said,
But it's
but
so
you
good
need
for
it.
them.
But it's
so
so
good
good
for
for
their
them.
brains.
So I've been trying to make them look lighter. Like putting some milk in, or doing whatever to make
What
them
about
fluffier
little
and
toy
lighter.
soldiers? Like if you use sort of a soft boiled egg and they dip their little toast wedges into it.
He'd like that, I think.
I also
My kids
find
pour oil and salt on everything. My kids
You're
are like
lucky.
the like maestros in the kitchen over there. I mean, they want to dip their
wonder
carrots
why.
in there. I know.
I know, it's not
I know.
surprising.
They don't
no,
fall far from the
I
tree.
think with picky eaters is so I have one very picky eater out of the four, and the baby one doesn't count, but they're all babies actually. Okay, but the 3-year-old Rafa is so picky,
Yeah.
and he's just starting to try foods again. the best piece of advice somebody gave it to me is don't make it an issue.
Yeah.
Once you make it a thing, then they get into it.
Then
Just
it's
say,
their identity to
okay,
be
you don't
picky.
want that. That's fine. And you offer it. Hey, you know what? Do you want the egg yolk?
Mhm.
No? Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, we'll have this instead.
Right.
You
Like,
know what I
don't
mean?
explain it. And I think that is something because food was such an issue for me because everything was explained. And I don't blame just my parents, but my parents were totally crazy when it came to food. So I think that's where all
Yeah.
of my misinformation or information came from. And I used it in the wrong way. And it was like the wrong type of fired up, about what food meant. And so at 10 years old, I knew all of those things because I had heard it from my
Yeah.
parents. So that's one huge thing that I do now with the kids is I not only don't make it a big deal, I never mention nutrients of things. I'm not like, you need protein or you need, because even that I think I want them to have a balanced meal. And I will totally bargain and be like, you can have a piece of chocolate if you have 10 edamame. Cool. Like, I'll do that. I'm not at all too good to be that way. But I think I don't try, like, you're right. Don't make it a big deal and just stop paying such close attention because that's where it ended up coming from.
Yeah.
And not that I'm worried that my boys are going to be anorexics or something, but I think in the same way of where do you bring your kids when you've had these types of issues yourself?
Right.
I'm so well aware. And I do, most of my therapy sessions now are how do I be the best parent?
See, I
Yeah.
think that's so interesting because, I mean, obviously I grew up in a family where awareness of nutrition and food and the value that it has as medicine first
Yeah.
and foremost was front and center for me. And I grew up very overweight. And I think something that's very interesting here is obviously it's at a different level and a different scale. But for me, I felt like being the overweight child in an extremely healthy family was my cross to bear. And it ended up defining my career in many ways and giving me this platform to speak from authenticity and with a lot of compassion for how challenging and what a struggle it can be to take your health back and take that ownership back. And I think it's very interesting
It is.
that in many ways, it sounds like the cross to bear that each of you had was also a catalyst
Well,
for
it's
your
the
whole
same
platform.
thing. It's just it's the inability to know when you're full, when you should eat, how much you should eat, when you should stop eating. I mean, it really is just a lack of connection with your body. The food experience isn't just in the mouth. The food experience is how you start to feel it go into your veins, your energy level, what you're eating. Am I eating a lot of sugar that's going to spike me up or caffeine? Am I eating something that is going to bring me down? Am I eating just at that balance, that place where I'm feeling really good? And because, going back to what you said, who doesn't want something bad?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's interesting. You see
Yeah.
kids. My son Leo's, he's 2. He's going through that hitting phase. He hits and I say, no, you can't do it. Okay, mommy, I'm sorry, mommy. And then like we go into another room and he hits again. And like what somebody explained to me is like, well, he knows that hitting in that room isn't okay, but is it the same thing as hitting
Yeah.
over here?
Might as well try it.
Exactly. And we're all doing the same thing. So, with
And
food.
it's fun.
It's
Yes.
well,
is fun.
yeah. It's
Hitting
been
a
a
sibling,
long
I
week.
can remember.
Not the hitting is
Yeah.
fun. Doing the bad thing can
Yeah.
be
But
fun.
doing the bad thing, eating the bad thing.
Well,
can
eating
be
the bad
fun.
thing is really
It's
fun.
really
I
fun.
love
That's
eating the bad
That's
thing.
our issue. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, what I've learned is that kids listen to everything.
Yes.
They are sponges, as everybody says. And, how we show them we eat in front of them, how we
Yeah.
talk about
So
food.
important.
And I think a lot of it has to do with, disciplining them and what coping mechanisms they go to. If I have to tell my son, hey, we don't hit or you can't hit or, go through that whole thing with him. And as anyone with a toddler knows that those toddlers, they're not just like, okay, fine, and then stop doing it. It's an issue for a period of time. I think that how we teach them that they are not their actions, that they are good people and they are
They made a bad
themselves and they
choice.
made
Yeah.
a bad choice. Exactly. And the less that they identify with whatever bad behavior they do and how we can help them through that, the better grown-ups they will be.
Yeah, I think that's very true. It's very hard. I have to cognizantly think of that when
It's
I'm
hard.
doing it, though.
It's so hard.
It's so hard.
Well, because I think it's interesting. You mentioned transitions being a time when there was a lot of instability and that gave your brain the soil to start to go into these negative places. And I think it's interesting as parents, you're almost always confronted with instability. Nothing is really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because you put a lot of things in your control. Obviously, you control your kids, what they're eating and what their schedule looks like and when they go to bed and all these things. But a lot of the time they're humans and they're introducing unknown variables and forcing you to sort of make a decision from your heels as opposed to forward thinking. And I think, I'm curious to hear you talk about how you, yes, give your kids the tools and the coping mechanisms to combat from the earliest age any sort of negative self-talk and that sort of process that that you've been through. but also how you now, knowing that you're sort of constantly confronted with small transitions, how you sort of barricade yourself. Like how do you, I guess, pump up? What's your anthem? Like,
Yeah.
what's your pump up?
No, I do, and I have to do this. I think it's first communicating, which is like so simple, but if you say it out loud, then you're addressing it, and that's the beginning of it. So, and I'll do an example of Adrian had a fever and was sick, and he had this cough, that cough that makes them like, so he has a really
Keeps
bad
them
gag
up all
reflex.
night. Oh no.
And so,
it's
but he
throw
hadn't
up
eaten
coming
much,
right.
but yeah,
Oh gosh.
he starts coughing and he couldn't stop and he throws up and it threw up on me.
Oh,
And then we move over to his bedroom and it happens again.
Of course.
And I'm like, and
why
it's-
not get the entire house?
he doesn't have much in him at this point. But then he said, I want to take a nap. At this point, it's bedtime, but he's like out of it because, they just get so. And he
Yeah.
goes to bed and it lays him down. And he said, I'm sorry, Mommy. I don't know what the deal is with me.
Oh.
And I was like, it broke my heart because I thought
They
he
do, they
thinks he
apologize,
did
yeah.
something wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't react different. And
Yeah.
I thought, what do I do with this? What do I do with this?
Yeah.
How do I make this right? I'm like, nothing's the deal with you, buddy. You're just sick. This is a normal thing to
Yeah.
feel. And you didn't mean to throw up. You happen to have a really strong gag reflex. So then I'm explaining to a 2.5-year-old
Yeah.
why his gag reflex is a thing. But it was critical for me to know, because I was also getting frustrated because it was day 3 of having fevers. I'm scared. I'm fearful. So it's those things where I have to allow those things to wash over me, kind of meditation like, where
Right.
it's like, let those feelings in. Is this going to matter a week from now? No. And I always ask myself that. Will this thing that is bothering me matter a week from now? If the answer is yes, and then I can say it'll matter a year from now, then we're allowed to put a lot of energy into it.
Yeah.
I tend to go way off. So then I'm putting him to bed and I start bawling. Not because my son's sick, but because I start thinking about all the kids with real illnesses that are a year from now. Like those are the things that start to, but those are the ones that I think that will give you great perspective. And it always helps me. I use that checklist a dozen times a day, and I allow myself to feel if it's going to be beyond that. And that's how I've kept myself slightly more insulated and more given perspective. I'm fortunate that I have this unique opportunity to be in these storm places. So I just came back from Hurricane Michael. I was in the eye, I think right after I saw you, Daphne, I had been in the eye of a Category 4 hurricane, unlike anything we've seen since Camille in 1969. So in most of our lifetimes, we've never seen a storm like this. And I was in the storm surge of 15 feet,
God.
watching people's homes burst apart or be twisted off their foundation and rush down. And it's those times too where I'm able to garner great perspective because it's in front of my face, and I bring that back home. And so it's that ability to say I have such gratitude because our house is standing. Those like really easy things. I will put those in my mind. And what I do now, and this is like if I wake up and I'm a little off, I always wake up and when I'm in the shower, we have a glass shower, and I write on one side what I'm grateful for. So I always make that a written thing, and then I write a goal or a focus on the other short glass door.
I love that.
And it really sets the tone for the day. It's very like Tony Robbins-ish or something. Like I feel like but
there's a reason
Let me tell you
he's been
something. I do.
so resonant
Yes.
with
I
people.
do exactly the same thing, and reminding yourself, even when it's so hard, of what you are grateful for.
Yeah.
How it could be worse. Then you have the light.
And
then you're going towards the
You
light.
need a
and it's gonna be
target. You
okay.
need absolutely. The human brain needs. It is constantly forming new connections, and your pathways are primed. So the more you go down a particular negative way of thinking, a negative pattern, the easier it becomes for your brain to go that way. Think about the well-trodden path. Like your bike goes better on it, your car goes better on it. You have to actively participate in training your brain to go a different route, to work.
And especially if you've been, and I think I'm working with this with my therapist, which is something I'd never thought about. And I think if I went to school again, I'd do like
Psychology.
I'm fascinated by it. But we talk about even as infants, even a 5-month-old that's where we develop our attachment ability. It's called attachment theory, and there's all of these things. But just like you're saying, you can attach yourself to positives and negatives or certain situations mentally without even being there. And you can attach yourself and it can be something that you learned at a very, very young age, because it really ends up being how you attach to your parents. And it goes back to this whole thing. But it either helps or hurts the way that you live your life and attach to certain things. I don't know that I had the best of attachment early on, and it has nothing to do with just my parents. It can be how you develop naturally. I've had to rework that and rework those pathways and the way that I attach to things or don't. And so putting them as the first focus or the thing,
Yeah.
sometimes it has to be as cheesy as writing on a wall and saying it. And I used to always make my passwords my goals. And that seemed to work because what do you type in every
Over
time?
and over
What do
and
you
over
type
again.
in over
Right.
and over? And it's there. It's very vision boardy, and I'm not like that, but it works.
No.
But
But that's the gift of the human brain. That's how
Yeah.
plastic we are. You
and
can
it's also
constantly
not just
be
the brain. I mean, so
rebuilding it.
what I talk about, so the word yoga means union between body and mind. And so what I couldn't understand while I was going through things is I was like, okay, I know it's bad if I'm bulimic. I know it's bad that I'm anorexic. I know it's bad. And so I was like telling myself
Yeah.
this over and over again. And then I wasn't letting my body catch up.
Mm.
And so your body has a physical reaction to every single thought that you think.
Yeah.
So the more that I'm thinking about negative, and we think our brains are just, that's what's important. And it's actually much more the balance between the body and the mind. So my body was seizing up. You know, if I think about something horrible that happened, my shoulders are going to tense up, my hands are going to close, my jaw is going to clench, my brow,
You stop
whatever.
breathing.
You stop breathing. And so the moment that you think about something positive, your body also is going to have a softening reaction to that. So the more that you bring yourself into that, the better you're going to physically feel. And if you physically feel good, you're more likely to react well, to parent well, to live a happier life, and to make the right decisions that are going to lead you into an even better path.
And identifying those. So identifying them is one thing, but then to let them go. So you can have that, because that moment when he has 104 fever, it's okay to feel fear, because I was fearful.
Yeah.
But then it was like, okay, you're doing everything you can do. I called the doctor already. They told me the certain things that we can only give him Motrin and Tylenol too.
Right.
So keep him hydrated, and repeating those things is important too. That kind of that was a cheerleading moment. Was like, you're doing it, Mom. So,
You got this.
You got this. I'm not to the point of looking in the mirror yet, but I'm close. I'm close. Wink. Hey.
You do. You have to be your own best cheerleader sometimes. You can't wait for that. And that's what's interesting is when you were talking about your relationship with Ben is, you know, you finally allowed yourself to sink into him wanting his love for you to wash over you, as you're also, you know, you were finally in this receptive place where you could feel that. But it's tricky because you can't ever rely on, no matter the best marriages in the world, you cannot rely on someone else to make you feel a certain way. But I want to actually, you had brought up, you know, traveling into the eye of the storm, and we had lunch right before you went down to Florida. And you were talking about how, you know, you've always been in this career that puts you occasionally in just danger's way.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
danger.
And I think at the time, you know, you'd sort of been dealing and grappling with this idea of I'm a mom, yes, of course, and I don't want to die, obviously.
Yes.
But but you know, how do you sort of structure your life so that you get to continue to do this thing that you love?
Yeah.
But be the best mom you can be, and how do you make balance of that?
And I was talking to
And
you
not
about
have
it
mom
because,
guilt.
not have more guilt than is natural.
Yeah.
So I went to Florence, which was the hurricane earlier in the Carolinas, and that's where I had gotten something that I'd never gotten before, and that was a lot of social media reaction saying, how dare you? You're standing outside in 105-mile-per-hour wind gusts. I've done this since I was in college. I went to school for storm chasing. I've never missed a storm unless the ones when I was pregnant. I
But
mean,
as you're saying, the storms are getting worse.
the ones that I'm standing in are not, you know, not your run-of-the-mill 60-mile-per-hour
Right.
tropical storm. This is a serious hurricane. But I've done it before, and I've done it in a safe way, especially in Florence. And so when I got all of these messages, most of them said, how dare you? You're a mother now. First of all, I was offended because I'm like, you didn't care about me before I was a mother. Wait a minute.
You're expendable.
You didn't care at all. Then I was thinking, of course you would never say this to a man in my position.
Right.
And in science, in meteorology, I am a minority. That's just what happens. And so I've dealt with that a little bit. So I wasn't completely upset by that. I was upset because it actually hit a chord with me,
Yeah.
and because I have an insecurity about that, is that I walked away thinking, and I treated it very differently. That storm, the second something flew, I'm like, I'm going inside, which I wouldn't have done before having kids, because
Right.
I now have other responsibilities, and they do matter, and I do have this attachment to them. It's very interesting to take who you are and then evolve it into this brand new person, because you really are a brand new person and you have a new career, and that new career is being a mom. And so I had to balance now, where are my priorities? What is important? Is it important that somebody sees a board flying, or is it important that I don't get in the head with it so that my 3-year-old has a mom?
Right.
And so obviously that is an obvious one. And I said to most of the people, I wrote kind of a blanket thing because I couldn't believe the hundreds of messages. And I get a lot of normal up and down media, social
Right.
media. Nothing bothers me, but this one did. And so because it was that insecurity, and I said, I know I'm a mother. I love my children. I love my husband, but I love my job. And I want to find this place where I know where, what's safe and what's not. And I think in Florence, I really did a great job of balancing that.
Yeah.
I great support from that. Most people were very good. Still, some people came back at me. You're wrong. You do this. And I thought it was really interesting. I'm not alone. Being a storm chaser is unique. There's not a lot of female storm chasers out there, but there are pilots. There are
Policemen,
folks in the military, all women that become mothers, and then they have to probably look at these jobs. You don't have a paramedic that says 20 years into her career, oh, great, yeah, I'll just go do something else now.
Right.
You can't. I mean, and we started having that dialogue online, which I thought was really interesting, that I'm not alone. There are a lot of these jobs that are dangerous. And they said, a lot of those women said, I'm never stopping. I'm never going to stop doing. Of course, I'm always tentative, and probably more tentative than I'd ever been before. But I love what I do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so it made me emboldened a bit to go and keep doing what I was doing. Then I'm in Michael. And it becomes this storm that nobody's ever seen before. And I made a choice based on a couple of other things to put ourselves in where I knew the storm surge was going to be the most. But I also did such due diligence. Would this building be hurricane, proof? Would the surge do anything? No. And our building was a fortress. It was amazing.
Right.
And not a window or door smashed. Perfect. So I felt very good about my choice. But at the end, I thought, I don't know that I have to do this anymore. Maybe this is where I start to evolve. I'm still going to be a storm chaser. I'm still going to go into the storm. But do I have to be at the coast?
Right.
Or can I, because the people I met after this storm were the people that survived it, because nobody was in there yet. We were there in the raw moments of it hitting and in those moments afterward. When I'm watching a house pulled off of its foundation, rolled down a street, I know there's a person in there.
Ugh.
And I know that they're likely not surviving that, because I know how storm surge works, and you drown. I mean, that's just, or something hits you in debris. And I've done this long enough. But that part, I thought, now I've shown people that. I think the next step is, maybe I'm going door to door with the Red Cross or somebody else, and we go and we do the heroes before the heroes. We go and save them before. And because the people I met said, why did you not go? This was an evacuated area. And they said, I don't have a car. I don't have the funds to, even if they did have a car, they don't have extra gas money to go. And where are they going to go stay?
Right.
Some shelters would work, but whatever. That had, in 20 years of doing this, had never dawned on me that there isn't that opportunity for everyone. And so when people get all up in arms like, they should have left and they're putting the first responders at risk, it's like, yeah, but they couldn't.
Choice,
They
right?
actually had no choice. Or one of her husband's on dialysis and they couldn't move because they couldn't get a hold of their family member. Not everybody has
The
what
support
we,
network.
The resources.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was so fascinating. So I thought, that's my next job. Now I'm total mom. I'm going into the storm, and I'm going to get all the people ahead of time and say, listen, I know this is going to happen. I've put myself there before. Please come with me for this 12 hours. And if it's not as bad, we bring you straight back home. If it is, you live your life. You can bring your pets. You can do this. That's my dream. That's my next dream.
Isn't that amazing how, you've brought us through your, life and career, and how your career has really mirrored your
yeah.
mental health and your purpose in your personal life.
Mhm.
And it's very fascinating.
And
I mean, you can't get further than like storm chasing and suicidal at
Right,
the same
right,
time,
which seems very similar.
to now
Yeah.
I've got this like great family and this
Yeah.
life, and maybe I can like put that.
Yeah, and I don't,
that
but I
out.
won't ever change it. I'm
Right.
still going
Right.
to chase that storm.
You have
It
to
just evolves.
reconcile
Yes,
the fact
it
that
just
you're still
evolves.
at the core the same person. And I think
Yeah.
that's something we've talked about a few times here on Mom Brain about version, every child we say, but I think it's just every life stage you become version 2.0, version
Mhm.
3.0, version 4.0, and you're stripping off these layers and you're getting rid of the baggage that sucks and that's holding you
Yes.
down, and you are filling up with other things that you never even knew you were missing. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this sort of life cycle that you've had so far. And you're 37 years old, so I'm not pushing you into like the grave,
And I'm over. It's over. So.
But I can only imagine what the next 37 years
Yes.
will hold in that way of you being open to whatever, on the one hand, what life is pushing you towards, on the other, what you've actively sought. And, this interesting that you went into the career path that put you, not that it purposely put you in harm's way, but that it was this very exciting and energizing
Yeah.
and also sometimes scary.
Definitely risky. That's the
experience.
part that was attractive
Yeah.
at first when
Yeah.
I was young. And I think I had no sense, obviously, of life or death. And I didn't know how precious life was. And that's something that everybody gets as they get older. That's why teenagers are so like,
Titanium
I can do
youth.
anything. Right.
Yeah.
now I think that I can do anything, but that has changed. And I think the beauty is one of the women I met, she just desperately wanted to get in touch with her mom. You know, the cell phone towers never work and they don't work for weeks sometimes afterward. And she had worn a life preserver and survived through the storm by swimming and had held onto a boat.
Oh my God.
I can't even, I mean, she's so lucky to be alive. She was one of the very few people that probably survived it that way. And that feeling when she said, I just need someone to call my mom.
Yeah.
So I got her number, and our satellite phone wasn't even working there. We walked about 2 miles north, and we hiked out with our stuff because there was no other way. Of course, our car was gone. Sorry, National Car Rental.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And there's no way to get through all the debris, and the satellite phone works. And I called her mom, and I think because I'm a mother, that part, the humanity of the storm has gotten so intense for me, and I started crying. And then it became a real, I didn't care about the storm and the science and all of this stuff anymore. I cared about the people that I just met and about how I was going to help get them out next time, and how I got to call their mom and listen to her break down in the best way, with the best news that she could ever hear, is that her daughter was alive.
Oh.
And it was such a, and I've told those stories before, but I think now I have such a even deeper connection to them. Because can you imagine if one of your kids was in one of those places, and whether you knew or not that they made a choice to go or couldn't have a choice to go,
I can't imagine.
and a natural disaster comes,
I can't imagine.
and it kills a lot of people around them, and they're the one that survives, and you get to, it was just, I mean, chilling in the best way, though.
You have this life where you're going to bed at 8:30 or 9 when the kids go. When do you have time to be with your husband, who is
Also has a TV show and lives in a different city.
And lives in a different city.
What? And you have 2 toddlers by yourself, and you get up at 3 a.m. Can you please explain?
Her name is Abigail. She is our nanny. I'm really very indebted, to the point where I'm like, we're definitely paying a lot. I mean, because that's what it takes. And I'm so fortunate that we have the ability to do that, because she is the third parent. She is our other parent. When I'm not there, she's there. When he's not there, she's there.
Right.
And we're lucky because she has the flexibility and the love in her heart for my kids, sometimes more than I think we might even. I mean, that's how much she loves my kids. And it feels so good to feel confident that she's there. But I also don't want to string her out. I don't want her to be at the edge of everything. And then you talk about seeing my husband, because that comes last. I mean, it really does. But that shouldn't be. And so that the priorities thing is something we've been talking about a lot lately. His show has been much more demanding this season, which is wonderful because it means it's going well. But it means instead of 4 days, it's 5 or 6. It's sometimes he's only home for 24 hours or 36 hours. And sometimes I'm away in Canada, like this weekend, doing a speech. And we just passed and we see each other. We saw each other at the airport for lunch. We had a lunch date at the airport. So that's the type of thing we're trying to do, is if we can utilize that time. We were taking Miles for his 8-month for his booster to his flu shot. And I got the time wrong, which as a mom is like the nightmare that you've just wasted. And I woke him up from his nap to go. And I'm like, why did I make a 1 o'clock appointment in the first place, is what I'm asking myself.
Right.
We get there. They're like, oh, you're not due for another hour. I'm sorry. The doctor can't. They couldn't get us in. So we looked at each other and we both got to go. And we said, let's go to Starbucks and have a coffee date. I mean, with Miles, but still, you have to use every single moment. Something I learned after Dancing with the Stars. So I had Adrian, and 6 weeks later, I started doing Dancing with the Stars.
We need to talk about this too.
That was my training ground, because I've always been busy. And isn't that a relative term? We're all busy. I mean, everybody's busy. And it doesn't matter where you are in life. But once you have children, I think it's a different type of busy.
Yeah.
And I had not experienced that before. I'd also not experienced having a full-time show called Dancing with the Stars and a full-time career at GMA and doing these right after I had a baby at 6 weeks. And I learned in that moment for the first time to be focused and to live in that moment. Because if I didn't, that hour doesn't mean anything. But I use I try to, without being too, of course I can have fun. And I was probably too flexible in the moment back in my life. But this gives structure without, and then you feel productive and you feel like you've done it right. So that's the thing that we've been doing, is just using whatever, even if it's a half hour. It's like, what can we do? Can we watch a little bit of Jersey Shore? Yes, we can. Great. I'm going to hold your hand and watch Jersey Shore. We're going to be okay. So that's the best. But we haven't seen each other enough. We also are making plans for the next thing. So when he's on hiatus for a couple of weeks during the holidays. how are we going to spend that time? How are we going to utilize every moment there?
I think those plans are so important, whether
Yeah.
it's with self-healing or with a relationship or something, because then you, again, go to the light. You see the light
Yep.
at the end of the tunnel.
Yes,
You're
you
like,
do.
but we are going to be doing this. This is what we're doing right now, and it's hard, but I'm being present for it. I'm living each moment, so I'm not missing out on anything. And then it's going to be really good in December
And also
or
to
whatever.
not be as hard on ourselves. So yesterday, we just moved.
That's
as
so
of
hard.
June, July,
Oh my
whatever.
Because you guys are also like house flippers.
Yeah,
I mean,
we did a ton of stuff in the last couple of years.
It's
And
amazing.
when people from the outside start telling you, like, you realize how fast you're running, right? And you don't feel like it because you're in it. And I think becoming aware of what other people are saying sometimes is important. Obviously, you have to ignore the bad stuff, but there's times where it is that, like, the reality. And I think my dad said it. I had a new show that was an opportunity, and I said, "Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to be able to shoot because they're going to shoot it in LA." He's like, "How would you have done that anyway?" He's like, "Actually, physically impossible at this point." And he's like, and I said, "Part of it is because I'm scared, and I guess a big part is because I'm scared that everything's going to end tomorrow." And he's like, "Are you enjoying your family? Are you he started some of the best advice my dad's ever given me." And he slowed me down for a second and made me think about why I was afraid, why I was upset that I got, for one, I auditioned for the show and I've never gotten something I auditioned and I was really excited. And then I couldn't do it. But I think it gave me such power knowing that that was a choice, mostly forced by circumstance, but that I'm saying I can be proud of what I'm doing right now. It doesn't mean we're going to have work forever. And I think
Right.
everybody's had these big transitions in their lives and in their careers. The thing that's going to stick around is that relationship with your husband, and the thing that's going to stick around are your children. And so that is the easiest way to think about it. Even when the hottest, coolest thing is right in front of you, you can focus on that for the time that it's given. But if you give to everyone else, I know who else told me this, Michael Strahan. Great advice. And we were talking about either in
Because
finance.
he's someone who
He's
goes real
very
slow,
busy. Yeah,
you know,
he's so busy.
just says no to everything.
Yeah.
That old homebody, Michael Stewart.
That's why it's such a good example for me.
He
I
does
feel
more
like,
than anyone I've ever
Yeah.
met in my life. He's amazing.
You feel like that, but he does it right. I think he really does it and still takes care of himself and still takes care of his children. And I was asking him because it was kind of like, whether it's financially or time-wise, how do you allot that to people? Because I know that there've got to be people pulling from him from every way. And he said ever since he started playing football, when it was very minimal, when it was just football, he started to feel it. And he said, I always do my parents and my children and my significant other. And that's it. He said, I don't owe anybody else anything. And that was such great advice, was like, just keep thinking that. You don't owe anybody else, including a career, whatever. You don't owe them. Now, if there is time, and he's figured out the allotment of time very well, then you can prioritize after that.
I'm always jealous of, well, first of all, I completely concur. And I think it takes such confidence and such inner strength to be able to say, I'm going to bow out of opportunities I have right now because I know more are going to come.
Yes.
And if I don't, because I feel the same way. I run at everything. I try to say yes to
I
everything.
say yes to everything.
Because my parents raised me before it was a thing with a very healthy sense of FOMO. And I really were, like, we would go on a trip somewhere and we'd be exhausted and like totally fried. And that the minute we would drop our bags at the hotel and immediately go out and explore. And it was such a rare, special thing. My dad was in medical school. We didn't have a ton of money. We didn't have a ton of things to do, like out of New Jersey where we grew up, other than to see family. But these were such precious, wonderful opportunities, and they drilled that into us. Like, if you have the opportunity to go see the Eiffel Tower or whatever it is, you're going to go, and you're not going to complain about being tired from the plane. And that's just a most obvious example. But I think across the board, it was always say yes, because you might miss the most incredible opportunity of your life. And I struggle with that all the time now with, you only have 24 hours in the day. And I do, like most, everyone, worry that what I'm spending my time on isn't always the right thing to be spending my time on. And I envy people who have that just ability to bless and release and just say, I know more is coming and I'm just going to wait for it and know that in this moment I have to just, because I do that, but sometimes I catch myself being like, oh, but maybe you should have just tried to work it all together, But I'm curious about the like, how do you get to that place where you're not worrying all the time when you're at work that you're missing these critical mom moments, and not when you're at home worrying that you're missing these critical work moments.
That's the hardest part, is deciding what's the important part, and then you have guilt on both sides. I think I really do. And so I have done for the at home, thank goodness for FaceTime for one, because I've done a lot of these trips, and I'm actually doing one coming up in a couple of days. I'm leaving on Thursday. I'll be in Chicago, Anaheim, Paris, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, and Orlando
in 6 days.
in a week. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is so insane.
In a
to
week.
me.
There's 46 hours of actual airtime in this trip. So that alone is like non-FaceTime. So I'm freaking out about that. I'm like, I don't know how in some of these countries I'm going to have, because that, to me, that is the connection. At least we have that. At least we have that. The other thing that I've learned from my therapist is if we're insecure about the attachment that we have to our child, or the relationship that they have with us, or how much they know that we love them and that we care for them, and mommy or daddy has this thing at work, as long as that is communicated, set up, and it is strong, space doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And he was explaining this to me, that people can have the most healthy attachments and the best, relationships, even when they're a world away. And there's a reason for that, because it's the way that they communicate it. It's the way that it was set up in the first place. In those times that you do have that time together, you're setting and laying the foundation for those times that you don't. We do have a different type of job. A lot of, I'm never going to be likely the person who's able to come home at night every night or be with them before they go to school, because that's just not how my job works. So I have really keyed in on that fact of having, I say to Adrian the things that I want him to believe. And I want him, it's a little bit of like marketing yourself to your kids. But they have to know from a very young age how much you love them, where that love comes from, where it's going to take us. And yes, there's times where mommy's not home at night, but here's
But
why.
I still love you when I'm not
I still
there.
love you when I'm not there. And if you're clear about that, and if they're clear about that, that attachment can be anywhere. And it could be for a month you could be gone, and it's not going to, make all that difference. Then for on the work side, that is something. So recently I had a friend's trip, which I've never done. These girlfriends I've had since we were 13. And so it's been so long in the making, and we should have done it a long time ago. But we all decided how hard it was, especially because I had just come from that hurricane. I had been gone a lot that month. And I thought, maybe I should just pull out. I don't know if this is right. I haven't seen my kids. I haven't done this. And I was realizing when I was talking to my therapist, it's like, I wasn't prioritizing myself in any of that. I didn't put myself at the top of any of those lists ever. In 20 years, I haven't done that, as far as, and definitely within the time that they've been alive. So I had to keep repeating to myself, it is okay to be away for yourself. Had that been a work trip, would I have felt as guilty? No.
No, I have to do this. I have to do this.
Yeah.
And
But you have to take care of yourself.
But you have to take care of yourself, and you have to foster your friendships, and you have to do those other things. And I kept repeating it to all the girls down there. And after the first day, we were like, great. And it was the best 3 days, and we had the best trip.
What'd you do? Did you just like sip, pina coladas by the pool? What'd you
pretty
do?
much. I mean, we did. We had
fun.
a little house that we had rented that had its own pool, and then the beach there. And we just didn't have just being able to share and have uninterrupted time together that we haven't had, and those friendships that you can't create again. I mean, they're just impossible to, because you grew up in a certain way in a certain place. And to have that and to catch up on each other's lives that we've not been able to do. You can't do what you can do in person on the phone or in an email or in a text. And it was so critical. And I felt so great when I got done. And I didn't feel guilty. And it was, we all FaceTimed our kids and we all did the thing but it was so solid.
That actually makes so much sense to me. You didn't feel guilty because you came home from that trip and you felt so filled up and you knew it was a wonderful use of your time. I think when we feel guilty is when we perhaps feel like what we got out of what we were doing wasn't worth the trade-off.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, like you said, you can't reform friendships, and the evolution of friendships once you're a mom, I think are such an interesting and a topic for the second podcast to come to do with us, because it's such a deep, female friendship, female support, especially going through the process of motherhood together is so critical. And a lot of the girlfriends that I grew up with, in high school, et cetera, and my best girlfriends who were from college didn't have kids at the same time that I did. Most of them are only now just getting married, and I'm really excited for them to go through this experience, and also to be the one with kids who are like 5+, not the newborns. Because then my kids will roll their own suitcases and we're off, we're traveling, we're gone. But I think I think that being able to have friendships who you can go, like you said, 6 months, a year without really having a deep, proper catch up, and they get it. They have their own kids or they have their own career. They know what's going on. They know it's not because you don't love them. And it's the same thing you just said. It's about the way that you tell your kids and you communicate to your kids that you have this deep.
It's because we have that foundation though. So that is the foundation you're trying to create. Is this long lasting, this thing that can be the thing that you get back to, and as if no time has passed. I think that's exactly the right analogy for it, because that's what you want with your children.
And being present in the moment, so that when you are there,
they know
it's
you're
like,
there.
I'm doing this, and you are the most important thing right now.
And that's a big lesson too, because phones are the number one distraction, I think. But there's a lot of distractions at home. Yeah. It's very easy to get distracted in different ways. And I haven't turned on a television show that I've wanted to watch. I don't know the last, except for that half hour of Jersey Shore, I think. That was just like half of me wanting to watch it. But
oh, come on. It's so good.
I love
it's
that
so
was like
good.
a go-to.
Number
that was
one
like
would have been Teen Mom, though, so
on
don't worry about it.
On your to-do.
I
Teen Mom
only
more
watch
than
MTV,
that.
okay? I'm 13 years old.
Wait, really? More than we have to, that it will be discussed. But I'm so intrigued that Teen Mom comes before Real Housewives for you.
Teen Mom is Real Housewives. It's kind of the original. So everything's come after Teen Mom. It's best television.
That is fascinating to me. I want to pick your brain about it on a creative note, because I feel like you do people. I mean, again, like I said, I feel like I keep scratching at the surface of Ginger, and there's so many layers and levels that come out, and you have your the home the house sort of renovation and flipping that you guys do, and it sounds like there could be an MTV sort of creative development brain at play here. What's next? Well, first of all, tell people the title of your book, because I think anyone listening to this episode is going to want to hear more on everything that you have to say. And then what's next for Ginger Z?
The title is Natural Disaster. I cover them. I am one, which was the easiest title to write because it's true. And you'll read a lot of things about me ending an engagement. I mean, very fun runaway bride stories, really good stuff. And then the next book, I actually went to write a children's book and then ended up writing a book about depression. I was like, well, how did I get here? But anyway, longer story. So Chasing Helicity is the series that I'm writing. And so that the second of the trilogy comes out in April, and that's for kids 8 to 12. And so that's kind of that kids thing. And then probably most exciting is I have a new show on Saturday mornings on ABC coming out, and it's called Rescue Heroes. And it's the story like we always hear after the disaster about the victim. This is the story about the first responder.
Amazing.
And so it's about their families, about their sacrifices, and all the things that we really rarely get to meet that character. You see him and you're like, what a hero. And that's the end of the story. And this will dive for an hour into these people's stories, and you'll get to hear more. Of course, it'll go over the storm and all of that stuff. But I'm starting to shoot that now, and that's really exciting.
So incredible. And where can we follow you?
Follow me at Ginger_Z on Instagram,
Who
on Twitter.
has Ginger Z?
That girl from Sensations.
Damn,
we
you're
covered that,
kidding me.
Daphne.
No, definitely her. It's definitely someone you only want to do at home to search. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't
so this
do it
can
at
be
work.
confusing. Just
Not
make sure
safe
you
for
get
work.
the underscore, because then otherwise you're going to find something completely different.
Yeah, there might be animals involved. I'm just saying.
Animals and eye drops. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
at Ginger_Z.
Yes.
Z.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep,
And
all
I
of
get
it.
all my weather updates, but I also get the best updates just about your life.
Oh, it's so
and
much fun. That part of social media is fun. I love sharing that part. I think there's such positive parts of it. And this weekend, I had a woman write me, and she really wanted to come to my talk in Windsor. She's from Windsor, but she's like, it was too expensive. And I just had this good feeling. Sometimes you just have and I invited her to be my +1. So she came, and
that's
just,
amazing.
Someone who I've been interacting with
Wait,
online.
that's amazing.
She's always been so supportive and lovely. And she was like, I think she's in her 60s, just a beautiful woman named Terry. And she was so grateful. And we had an awesome conversation. And what we're doing here is, I think, the other part of what will make all of us healthier is having that eye to eye, having the touch of a real human being, or listening to other people's stories as people are doing now. That helps you to just feel like you're part of the earth, and you're part of.
We're not alone.
And we're not alone.
Community.
And I think that's what I love that you guys are doing this for, because that is what my whole goal of the book was I want to hear their stories. Now I got to tell a lot of mine, but there's a lot more. We had to edit a lot.
I'm sure.
A lot of lawyers.
Yeah, I liked your. Yeah, I really liked your alternate title, which we can't actually talk about.
No, you can't say that? Oh, okay.
Could we say? I don't know. I really
There's an
want to.
alternate title. Yeah, my husband always said that my first book should be called All the Dicks I Sat On.
Yes. Oh, that's a good title.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
That's
we have
gonna
to
be the
bleep that out
follow-up
because
book.
it could be somebody's name.
Yeah. Apparently, what I learned is that what I learned was that you can't speak about people who are still alive. That's what I learned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a bummer.
Good to know.
That's a bummer.